Joe Biden's fight against free speech continues. This week, an NSA whistleblower revealed to Fox News host Tucker Carlson that he is being spied on by Biden's NSA. Tucker Carlson is accusing the Biden administration of spying on his private communications in an effort to get his show canceled. Interesting timing how this story is being reported just days after the U.S. in another case began seizing foreign news sites. They claim they did this to try to stop disinformation. And in somewhat related news, an advisor to the Pentagon's counter-extremism group has warned of a protected speech crackdown. They argue that while Biden is claiming he's trying to purge the military of extremists, many of his plans could actually violate individual First Amendment rights. First, looking at these new reports, following Tucker Carlson's program on Monday evening where an NSA whistleblower stepped forward providing evidence that the National Security Agency has been spying on him. A quote here from Carlson's show on Monday says, "Yesterday, we heard from a whistleblower within the U.S. government who reached out to warn us that the NSA has been monitoring our electronic communications and is planning to leak them in an attempt to take this show off the air. The whistleblower, who is in a position to know, repeated back to us information about a story that we are working on that could have only come directly from my texts and emails. There's no other possible source for that information, period. The NSA captured that information without our knowledge and did it for political reasons." Tucker Carlson went on to say, "The Biden administration is spying on us. We have confirmed that. This morning we filed a FOIA request asking for all information that the NSA and other agencies have gathered about this show." Another article on this today at the New York Post includes more, adding how after Tucker Carlson explained that they filed this FOIA request, he went on to say, quote, "We don't expect to hear much back. That's the way that usually goes. Only Congress can force transparency on the intelligence agencies, and they should do that immediately. Spying on opposition journalists is incompatible with democracy. They are doing it to us, and again, they are definitely doing it to us. They are almost certainly doing it to others. This is scary, and we need to stop it right away." The NSA did not respond to the New York Post's request for comment, nor did the White House. However, when asked about Carlson's claims while speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One on Tuesday morning, the White House press secretary acknowledged that surveillance was something the NSA conducted as part of its work, but couldn't speak to his case. A quote says, "Well, the NSA is an entity that focuses on foreign threats and individuals who are attempting to do us harm on foreign soil. So that is their purview, but beyond that, I would point you to the intelligence community." It's also been interesting to see how some people who align themselves with the liberal establishment are now furious at WikiLeaks after they weighed in. Yesterday, on their Twitter page, WikiLeaks shared a link to an article covering the Biden administration's spying on Tucker Carlson. WikiLeaks then said, quote, "Spying on and coercing journalists is not a new phenomenon. Hashtag Assange, hashtag Tucker Carlson." WikiLeaks was then flooded with angry comments, mostly by Democrats, who claimed that Carlson's free speech shouldn't be protected because he's, according to them, not a journalist. Some of these commenters also accused Carlson of spreading white supremacy propaganda. Moving on to look at what's happening at the Pentagon, an article by Christina Wong at Breitbart opens saying, Mike Berry, General Counsel for First Liberty Institute and Marine Corps reservist, sounded the alarm in a recent op-ed that said the Counter-Extremism Working Group is looking to formulate a new definition of extremism that could include constitutionally protected speech. Berry wrote, "Instead of monitoring external threats, The Pentagon is on a mission to identify and remove whomever it labels as extremists from America's armed forces. Ironically, the CEWG has yet to define what it means by extremism. Extremism is usually defined as the threat or use of violence to achieve an ideological agenda, but the Pentagon is now poised to expand upon that definition to include constitutionally protected speech. In other words, sticks and stones may break our bones, but words are the biggest threat. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin set up the Counter-Extremism Working Group in April after vowing to root out extremists and ordering the entire military force to spend a day discussing extremism. Since there is no Pentagon definition for extremism, Austin tasked the CEWG, led by Bishop Garrison, to come up with a definition and to define activities that would be considered extremist. Barry says that as they expand this definition of extremism, they're going to expand it to things that have been traditionally protected by the Constitution. Breitbart News reminds us that they recently reported how a senior Biden administration official said on a background conference call with reporters that the Pentagon was working quite hard to come up with a definition that, quote, ratchets up the protections, but also respects expression and association protections. Barry said he was also alarmed by what sounds like a plan to monitor service members' social media accounts for signs of extremism, which he feels crosses the line between defining extremism by one's actions, which the Pentagon has said that it would stick to, and defining extremism by one's thoughts or beliefs. Quote, I just don't know how you can reconcile the Constitution with trying to criminalize someone's thoughts and beliefs. Barry added that questions were raised about this and there was no adequate answer. They also add how The Intercept recently reported the Pentagon was considering using private contractors to monitor service members' social media accounts to circumvent First Amendment concerns, but the Pentagon denied this report was true. In addition, Barry said monitoring social media accounts sounds like an intelligence collection type activity, which is problematic since the Defense Department cannot conduct intelligence collection on U.S. citizens. The social media monitoring thing really reminds me of what China does with its social credit system, he said. As for who is specifically being targeted by the Biden administration, Barry said he was also alarmed that a number of questions raised by some of the participants showed they had preconceived notions of who extremists were, namely white people. Quote, they would phrase their questions such as, well, how is this working group going to eliminate white supremacists and white extremists from the military? Isn't that why we're really here? However, Barry said statistics did not show that extremism was a widespread issue in the military. He said, quote, if you look at the data over the last 5 years, there have been 21 service members who have been separated for extremist activity. 21 over 5 years, and yet that's what they want to focus on. And you have Biden saying that white supremacy is the #1 threat to national security, when I think we should be focusing our attention and our resources and our energy on China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. Those are quaint old-fashioned ideas now. We really need to focus on what unites us, he said. True extremists have no place in the military, but it's fewer than 1%, according to the Defense Secretary. He said the group also discussed the need for more data collection and the creation of a reporting mechanism for extremism cases in the military. Meanwhile, Barry also highlights an unusual level of secrecy regarding these plans. Even for members of the advisory group, details of the inner workings of the CEWG are scarce. Barry said the members of the advisory group do not even know who is on the CEWG other than Garrison. Barry said he is not sure how he came to be appointed to the advisory group, and that he did not even know he had been appointed until a reporter called him to ask about it. He also said it seemed he was the only conservative in the advisory group, and one of few who had military experience. He also acknowledged in his recent op-ed that speaking out could result in his removal from the group. Even though Barry could be removed from the group for speaking out, he said, quote, "I love my country too much not to sound the alarm, and if my love of America is what leads to my removal, then so be it, as long as my discharge papers state discharged for love of country." Asked what advice he would give service members given what he has heard so far, he said he would tell them to, quote, "be on guard, watch your back," he said. Please leave a comment and tell me what you think about this latest update. If you could give this video a thumbs up, remember to click the like button, that's greatly appreciated, and make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. As usual, thank you so much everyone who has been supporting this channel with your donations over at Patreon or PayPal. You can find either of those links down in the video description where you can support this channel directly. Patreon.com/realityreader or paypal.me/realityreader. And with all the censorship happening at YouTube, I'll just remind everyone again, it might be a good idea to find me over on some alternative platforms as well. You can find me at Odyssey.com, search for Kip Simpson there. I've also recently just signed up at another video site and news platform, superu.net. You can search for Kip Simpson at superu.net. You should find me there. I will follow up soon. Thanks again.